Instead of ruling his feelings, he let his feelings rule him. He put them back up on the throne. And he decided to give my mother the silent treatment. She would walk by him in the house and he would ignore her, act like he didn't see her. She would ask him something, he would answer back in the shortest, most unfriendly way he possibly could. He liked how it made him feel. When you give in to the flesh, there is pleasure. Feels good to have a pity party. Feels good to eat the 12th bowl of ice cream. Feels good to skip school, go down to the beach. The flesh loves to have its way, loves to stay on the throne. A couple of hours later, my mom got tired of having the cold shoulder treatment and decided to do something about it. She went and hid behind a door and stayed there as quietly as she could. My father looked and looked and looked everywhere throughout the house. It's hard to ignore somebody when you can't find them. The longer he looked, the more worried he became. He thought, dear Lord, maybe the rapture took place and I got left behind. A few minutes later, he passed that door where my mother was hiding. She jumped out on his back, put both legs around him, said, John, I'm not getting off until you cheer up. They laughed so much, my father forgot what he was mad about. No matter how mature you are, every day you have to take those feelings off the throne. Paul said in 1 Corinthians, everything is permissible for me, but everything is not profitable. I will not become a slave to anything. See, there are a lot of things we can do and get away with. We can go through life, bad attitude, hot temper, compromising, impatient. That's permissible, but it's not very profitable. If you live at that shallow level, letting your feelings rule you, you can only go so high. Yes, you'll survive, but it will be much less than you were created for. I'm talking today about reaching the fullness of your destiny. Paul said, I won't become a slave to anything. When we let our feelings rule us, we become a slave to anger, a slave to lust, a slave to self-pity. Because we're letting our flesh stay on the throne, it's like we're serving those things, held by their power. But I believe this is a new day. The flesh is being dethroned. No more living as slaves. We're rising up and saying, flesh, you're not going to control us. We're going to take the throne. We're going to make decisions that honor God and move us toward our destiny. The scripture says we are unspiritual when we are under the control of ordinary impulses. It doesn't say that these ordinary impulses will go away. The feelings will always be there. The problem is when we give in, we come under their control. When you say, Joel, I've always had a problem with my temper. I've always been impatient. I'll never change. Well, here's how you do it. You have to quit feeding those feelings. Anything you feed is going to grow. When that emotion of anger comes, if you keep giving in, getting upset, flying off the handle, all you're doing is making it stronger. You're giving it more power. If you keep feeding that self-pity, going around feeling sorry for yourself, it's just like a person that's addicted to a drug. The more he takes it, the more he has to have it. He craves it. The desire becomes stronger. Whatever area you're letting your feelings rule, it's going to grow. If you get stressed out every time you get stuck in traffic, you're feeding the impatience. Just imagine you're serving it a meal. You get real upset, here's a steak dinner, here's some vitamins. If you want to get out from under the control of the ordinary impulses, you can't pray them away. They're a part of life. The way you break free is you quit feeding them. Next time you're tempted to get upset, you feel that ordinary impulse, don't respond. Put on some good praise music. Think about all you have to be grateful for. What's happening? You're feeding your spirit person instead of feeding your flesh. As your spirit grows stronger, your flesh is getting weaker. You have to starve the self-pity, starve the anger, starve the bad attitude. If you keep sowing to the flesh, you'll reap defeat. But if you'll start sowing to the Spirit, you'll reap victory. And even though those fleshly, normal impulses still come, they won't control you anymore. This is how you know that you're mature. Not that you don't have any temptations. Not that you prayed away everything that bothers you. A sign of maturity is you still feel the negative emotions, but you don't act on them. You don't put them back up on the throne. You're the boss of your life, not your feelings. Proverbs says, a person that doesn't rule his own spirit is like a city with broken down walls. When we keep giving in to these ordinary impulses, our walls are down. We have no protection. We're defenseless. The enemy can come in and have a heyday with our life. Here's the solution. God has given each one of us self-control. Self-control is like a muscle. If you never use it, if you never discipline yourself, your self-control muscle is going to be very weak. You have to start exercising it. Start saying no to your flesh. You have a destiny to fulfill. God has amazing things in your future. But the scripture says, as long as the heir is a child, he will never receive the inheritance. If you're throwing a fit at 2 years old, that's okay. But if you're 20 years old, 40 years old, 60 years old, still giving in to the ordinary impulses, God is saying it's time to grow up. If you'll take your flesh off the throne, God will start releasing some of these amazing things that He has in your future. See, spiritual maturity has nothing to do with how long you've been in church, how long you've known the Lord. It has everything to do with what kind of fruit are you displaying in your life. Are you not living by your feelings? Are you saying no to these emotional impulses? I read something interesting about mountain climbers. When they're out climbing, one of the main things they have to watch out for are poisonous snakes. The snakes can be hidden behind a rock. They move it and get bitten. Or the snakes can be on the ground disguised. They look just like the terrain. They accidentally step on them. A snake bite way up in a mountain can easily be fatal. It can take hours, even days to be rescued. So constantly watching out for poisonous snakes is always on the forefront of their mind. But there's something called the snake line. When the climbers get to a certain altitude, when they get up high enough, because the air is so thin, they know that snakes cannot live at that level. They don't have to worry about getting bitten by these poisonous snakes at that height. In the same way, if you'll keep ruling over your emotions, not letting the flesh have control, as you continue growing,